Hi, you're listening to the Hippie Martha Hormone Hour. I'm Ashley, your host and creator of the Hippie Martha, a business that supports women's health and everything else that comes along with it. In each episode, I'll provide you with bite-sized information that will give you a better understanding of your body and hormones in ways you probably wish you would have learned sooner. We'll dive into natural remedies, holistic health, and evidence-based care. I'm here to empower you to take charge of your health with knowledge. So let's get started. Hey friends, and welcome back to the Hippie Martha Hormone Hour. I'm your host, Ashley, and I'm so excited to share today's conversation with you. I'm joined by the lovely Tamara Niedermann, a doula, community herbalist, and certified fertility awareness educator and reproductive health educator. Tamara brings so much depth and wisdom to this space, and I've had the true joy of getting to know her through our time spent together at the Wells School of Body Literacy. In today's episode, we're diving into all things fertility awareness, trying to conceive, birth work, and the beautiful intersection of herbalism and the menstrual cycle. It's going to be a grounded conversation I think you're going to love. Tamara, I'm so grateful to have you here. Thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you so much. I'm really, really excited. It's grateful to be able to just like share a little bit about me and my story and how I work with folks. It's exciting.
You are the third person that I've interviewed that we've gone to school together, which I'm so excited. I remember meeting you our first time and I was like, we're going to be like good friends. I could just tell it, like you have this vibe to you. But for our listeners, I want you to share your story about how you first learned about fertility awareness and what led you to become an educator.
Absolutely. How did I hear about fertility awareness? I think the reality is that for better or worse, I learned about fertility awareness by way of being a fan of the Duggars growing up. I knew that they used some kind of like natural family planning at times, like the daughters did. And I didn't even really know what it meant. I just knew that I was at a time in my life where I wanted to find a way to not get pregnant, but I didn't want to take hormonal birth control. I didn't want to get an IUD. So I was trying to figure out like the best way to not get pregnant without sacrificing what I felt I wanted for my body. And so I think I Googled natural family planning. And I found the book, Taking Charge of Your Fertility. I found the fertility awareness Facebook group, the big Facebook group, and I tried to teach myself essentially. And I was practicing fertility awareness for about a year and a half when was I was almost 30. I knew there were things that I was probably missing in the practice. So I Googled fertility awareness educator and there wasn't anyone close to me. So I found Sarah at the Well and I flew her to Florida and she taught. We did like a whole workshop for folks. We had maybe 8 or 9 people. And it was great. It was so beautiful and it was really, really fun to be able to like be a part of that learning in that way from somebody. But I was already a doula, and the longer I was learning about my body and learning about fertility awareness and how it supports people, and I was becoming so passionate about folks learning about their bodies, I was at the same time meeting families and folks who didn't know the name of their anatomy. Like they just didn't. They didn't really understand what it meant when the provider says, I'm going to check your cervix now. You know, the cervix is kind of like this ethereal thing that like folks are like pinning all their hopes and dreams to, right? And I just was growing frustrated with people not being taught how their bodies work and not learning until they're in the trenches of their pregnancy, right? So I reached out to Sarah when I was finally ready. And that was really the catalyst for me for teaching, was like, I'm meeting all of these pregnant folks who really don't know how their body works. And how can folks be experiencing true informed consent if they don't know they don't understand what their provider is saying. So for me, that is really why I wanted to teach it. And it's been such a gift to be able to incorporate some of this education into the way that I work with pregnant folks, and as well as like when we're caring for our clients postpartum, like, you know. So yeah, that's why I chose to do this professionally, for sure.
I love that Sarah just like flew to you.
Mhm.
Like that's
Yep,
amazing. And I think you or I would do the same for anyone. So if you're
absolutely.
listening to this right now and you want someone to just come teach you in person and lead like a beautiful fertility awareness circle, we would do it in a heartbeat.
For
So,
sure. Because it's just different to learn from a person sitting at the feet of a teacher. You know what I mean? Like there's something so special about that, like sitting in a group of people who are all trying to find the same thing and learn the same resource. So yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So Tamara and I got to experience this circle with our mentor, right? And like she said, there is something magical that bringing women together who all have this like-mindedness and who all just want to be in this like wisdom is it is something else. It's
Yeah,
something you can't even explain, the feeling that you get.
absolutely. It's real juicy.
It is. It's so good. So, from a doula standpoint, do you teach your doula clients about their anatomy? Are you incorporating, are they wanting to learn fertility awareness from you initially, or are they
Yeah.
coming at you from different angles?
I've been grateful to have folks who have taught fertility awareness, who have gotten pregnant and then have hired me as their doula, and folks who have hired me as their doula and then come to an understanding that they didn't want to get pregnant anymore, but didn't want to get an IUD. Like when you're, 3 weeks postpartum, your doctor's like, when can I put in your IUD?
Hmm.
And they're like, chill, man. I teach all of my doula clients anatomy and physiology. I think they are surprised probably by how intentional I am by teaching the anatomy and physiology, not only their uterus, but also their vulva and their clitoris, because all of that anatomy works together in the process of bringing your baby here. And it is definitely something that I think surprises people, especially if their partners are there. I always like say like, hey, today we're going to go over anatomy and physiology. You're going to see images of people's bodies. And I don't know that they often start with this understanding. They don't always know like how important it is to understand their bodies. And then like in their labors, they're like, oh, yeah, I'm really glad I understand these. And I often have folks who talk to me after their babies were born and say like, I'm so glad I had an understanding of what was happening in my body. I'm so glad I knew what it meant when they were talking about where the baby is in my pelvis. I was able to visualize it because you'd already showed me.
Right.
And that is so empowering. If you can't name your anatomy, if you don't know what your provider is talking about when they're talking to you about how dilated you are, or
Even like tears.
yeah,
Like,
like I was going to say, like
yeah,
offering perineal support, like things like that. If you don't understand what those things are, then how do you advocate for yourself in your labor, right? So yeah,
yeah.
it is really important to me to teach that in pregnancy, and it is really exciting when someone says, "Hey, can you teach me this fertility awareness stuff so that I don't have another baby?"
I will say it's like the ideal client that you get like not they don't want to get pregnant and then all of a sudden they want to try to conceive and you see them through these
Yes,
different changes of life and they are still supported all throughout there's these different cycles of life
absolutely,
and so it's a very rewarding process that you get to experience that with and I
absolutely,
will say that being a labor and delivery nurse, having women who are educated is so much more helpful to teach them when they're in the hospital and going through labor if they're delivering in a hospital versus those who like if they had an epidural and I had to catheterize them and they're like you're going to hurt my baby because
yeah,
they think
absolutely.
I'm sticking a tube by their baby and so just knowing that simple anatomy can
Mhm.
be so huge like we know
Absolutely.
how the baby got there, but we need to know more.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's like, it's hard to expect somebody like in their labor to have to learn a whole new language.
Right.
It's not fair to expect that of them. So I'm trying to get them before then, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, there's that visualization too that can be so impactful when they're going through labor and delivery and visualizing that baby coming out and all of the good things that that can do for your labor and delivery experience. So Yay, good job. I love that you teach that. That's amazing. Okay, so kind of moving on or going forward, what practices or routines have you found making fertility awareness sustainable for you?
Yeah.
So, yes.
So I think being honest with myself has been really important. What are the things that I know that I can continue, right? It's been 9 years of practicing fertility awareness, and I have moved through a lot in 9 years. And at different times in my life, I had different abilities and energy and time and emotional support. And so my practice of fertility awareness looked really different at different times in my life. A big part of that is that my husband and I tried to conceive for 6.5 years. I haven't told you this yet, but we actually just stopped trying to conceive. It was such a gift and not at all sad. After 6.5 years of trying to conceive and being really, really lucky to being able to support other people in trying to conceive and having, doula clients and all of these beautiful things, I just said like, hey, I'm out. I'm out. Fertility treatments are a lot on the body. I'm grateful that from the beginning, my husband was always like, hey, whenever you're done, we can be done. But there were times where my life was really all about trying to build a human. And there were times where I was really depressed for some kinds of things. And especially in the last 7 years or so, of just like, I can only do so much. And what I tell my clients is when I'm teaching them fertility awareness is like, this practice should be supportive in your life. And when it stops feeling supportive and it starts feeling like something that is a burden, then you can walk away for a little bit, or we can try to figure out how to make some changes. The first major thing that changed for me in my practice is that when I started using fertility awareness, I was a big journaler. I would spend, a couple of hours, like an hour in the morning and an hour before bed, journaling and writing and doing like very tangible things. And so I started practicing fertility awareness on paper. And over the last 9 years, it has stopped being feasible for my brain to be able to have a paper chart. It just didn't work after a while. I also stopped journaling on paper and started journaling in my computer or in my notes app. So I switched from paper charting to a digital chart because that was the best way for me to do it. I would not have been consistent charting if I was still charting on paper. The other things that I did were there were several times over the last 9 years that I've been charting that I have stepped away from it, that I've been like, this thing feels too much, whether that's because my mental health wasn't good or because I was giving myself injections, 6 days in a row every month that are going to change my hormonal stuff anyway. To take that step back and say like, hey, I need a break from this practice that I love, but I need a break from it because it no longer feels like a helpful part of my rhythms. And because I'm able to say like, hey, if I need a break, I can take a break. I also feel really easy to say like, okay, I'm good again and I can come back,
Yeah.
And I will say that for me personally with my journey, saying like, hey, we're done trying to build this baby. I'm grateful for everything that I've learned over the last 6.5 years, but now it's time for me to walk away. Charting feels nicer now.
Yeah.
Charting feels more like just getting to know me and like, oh, what's my body gonna do? And not necessarily like, okay, I have to have sex today because I opened my fertile window and then I have to have sex, the day after tomorrow. And then, okay, and then for not having to think those things and just being able to look at my chart and play with my cervical fluid and say, like, this is what my body is doing right now is really nice. And then I think the other thing that I did was I stopped trying to temp with a thermometer. And I wear my temp drop. I could not remember to temp with a thermometer. I have ADHD and my brain just wouldn't hold it. I wanted to, and I know that their temp drop has its own issues and there's a lot of nuance to using something like temp drop, but for me it meant that I could temp every night and
Yeah.
I would remember to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I have using fertility awareness and teaching it is that we can make it specific to you. Like you can make it what you want. If you just want to track cervical fluid and you're okay not knowing exactly when ovulation occurs, that's okay. If you are like, I need to buy a device to help me with temping, go for it. We'll figure that out, right? And so that's the beauty of what fertility awareness is. And, there are different, I've talked about this before in other episodes, that, every method is going to be more effective, less effective, things like that. But in your case, if you're open to conceiving at any time, it doesn't really matter. Like, it's more of this connection to yourself and to your
Right.
cycle. You know, it's such an individualized uh, thing to
Yeah,
do. And
absolutely.
so kind of getting to know your daily rhythms and your partnerships and what's affecting it and your stress and all of that, I think is the great thing that you can do using fertility awareness.
Absolutely.
You mentioned tools. Okay, so
Mhm.
let's just quick talk about this. So there are apps out there. Let's get
Mhm.
on the app topic just for a hot second,
Yeah, absolutely.
because I know that a lot of apps will sell your data. And so what is your favorite app to use?
I use the Read Your Body app for tracking. I feel really comfortable in how it handles my data. I also feel really passionate about not using an app that's going to tell you when you're fertile. For me and my husband, we have not had a risk that I was going to get pregnant without wanting to be pregnant, right? Because our desires have always been to get pregnant. But if I'm using an app that is guessing when I'm going to be fertile. For me, in our situation over the last 6.5 years, there would have been lots of times where I would have missed my fertile window because my cycle, she does her best, but she's a little wonky,
Mhm.
And so, and when it, on the other side of that, if someone is trying to use fertility awareness as a practice for contraception, guessing when you're going to be fertile, when you're not going to be fertile is a risky game to play. And so for me, I have the Temp Drop app because that's where my wearable thermometer um, where those temperatures go. And then I sync those temperatures to my Read Your Body app. I don't need the part of the Temp Drop app that is going to chart for me or tell me when to put my cover line. I just need it to take my temperature and then I sync it over to my Read Your Body app.
Yep, definitely. And I think there's a lot of new tracking devices out there. So buyer beware, right?
Yes.
Like they're not perfect. Don't buy into the predictive measures, because that is not true fertility awareness. It's
Mhm.
just telling you to do something again, right? It's
Right.
not like actually getting into your rhythm, into understanding your body. It's just telling you, just like a doctor would. So understanding that they are not perfect. Nothing is perfect, and we are humans and we make errors. And it's what I love about being able to track is that you can see your daily life patterns and how that affects your body and how you can tune into it. So with apps, it's nice because we always have our phone on us and
Yeah.
we can always track and we can always just like plug it in. Obviously, if you're charting on paper, it makes it a little bit more difficult. I'm like you. I struggled and I love the
Yeah.
Read Your Body app.
Yeah.
So,
And if you are charting on paper, I have a client who wrote on her bathroom mirror in a dry erase marker, like check your cervical fluid. And then that's an easy reminder for her to check her cervical fluid. And she writes her cervical fluid into a notes app throughout the day, into her notes app on her phone. And then at the end of the night, because she has like pretty colored pencils and she's got like a whole system thing that she works out, at the end of the night, she does her pretty on paper with the information that she has collected on her phone. So a lot of people chart on paper. There are people who really like paper. And it's definitely something that you can do, just being like honest with yourself about what energy you do have available to you. I also think like a lot of this conversation is about radical responsibility, right? Like taking responsibility for our fertility. It is really easy to hand your fertility over to a predictive app or to a provider. That's really easy. And if you are in a time of your life where ease is your priority, I totally get that. But if you want to really take responsibility of the choices that you make every day about your fertility, whether you get pregnant, whether you don't get pregnant, it's a practice of like acknowledging that you have it in your hands, that you can make the best choices for yourself and for your family and for your fertility. It does feel different to really take responsibility of your health into your hands, because we have been so trained by society to hand our health over to other people.
Yeah, definitely. And I also think if you have a significant other, it's so good for them to know it as
Mhm.
well. So the cool thing with the Read Your Body is they have like, you can send your significant other like different notes on your
Yeah.
chart and things like that. So it's cool because you can both be on the same page and be like, hey, I've even seen people who have shared calendars, like this is what cycle day I'm on, right? Like that's huge. And for those, I want to just kind of go back. For those who are listening, who are wondering what fertility awareness method we teach, Tamara and I both teach a single check symptothermal method. So that means that we are opening our fertile window with cervical fluid. If cervical fluid is present, then you are within a fertile window, given the time or cycle day. And then we are closing it with a basal body temperature. So we're taking our temperatures every day. We're checking cervical fluid every day. We're seeing how we're feeling. We're really getting in tune with our bodies. And this is the whole practice. And then you're writing down those things that you're observing.
Yeah.
So moving on, let's go into, you are also an herbalist.
Mhm.
And how do you approach different conversations surrounding herbs and those wanting to either regulate their cycles or, if someone has, like you said, you have a really wonky cycle, like
Yeah.
how should they go about looking into if they want to do it more naturally?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love working with herbs. I love working with plant medicine. And I think always start with an understanding of the person and their life and what they can incorporate. For a lot of people, my first visit is like, hey, try to get more sleep. Why don't we try to get a little bit more sleep? I hear that you like scroll in bed for a couple of hours before you go to sleep. How about we go from 2 hours to just 1 hour and then maybe read for half an hour? Like maybe let's try that. For some people who really struggle with staying hydrated, it's like, hey, why don't you get a knockoff Stanley from Walmart or wherever, the Dollar Tree, wherever you can, and just fill it and just like drink it as many times as you can. So I want to start folks on like where they're at, right? And then if they're someone who has like really great sleep habits and drinks a lot of water and tries to be as nourished as possible, um, then we talk about some things that they can incorporate into their rhythms via herbs. And I'm going to want to know like if they're on any pharmaceuticals. That's like a really important question that I'm going to ask and try to make sure that I'm being mindful of what they're already taking. And then we talk about what herbs could be supportive. There's definitely herbs that can be supportive in things like lengthening a luteal phase or creating more cervical fluid. And all of that is really dependent on who the person is and what their lifestyle looks like. What would be easy and safe? Because I think there's a lot. You can go online right now and you can look up, one of the things that always comes up, and it's Ashley's gonna laugh at me because I'm always in the chat, like, just be careful, is Vitex or Chase Tree, right? If you go
Yeah.
online, if you are having fertility struggles and you go on herbs to help with fertility, I can bet you right now it is going to be on that AI generated list that Google gives you, and it's going to be in the top three, right? Vitex or Chase Tree. And that's because it does a really good job
Yeah.
at lengthening someone's luteal phase, the second half of their cycle that they need to be nice and long so that an egg can travel from the uterine tube and implant into their uterus, right? It does a really good job of that. It also really impacts your anxiety if you are an anxious person. And I didn't know that when I started taking it. I was just starting, I call it my practical herbalism training. I was in school learning herbalism, and I started taking Chase Tree because I heard someone else talking about it. So I started taking Chase Tree, but I have a very anxious mind and I was starting to feel so, I mean, I don't love to use the word crazy, but I was starting to feel crazy. And it wasn't until one of my teachers like mentioned it sort of in passing, like, hey, if you have anxiety, these are some things to think about when you're taking Chase Treat. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I was taking it at an incredibly high dose because I have a very short luteal phase, and I wasn't taking it in the best way for it to be absorbed. So essentially, it was just impacting my anxiety. And so then I was able to learn, okay, this is the best way to take it. And maybe instead of taking it 3 droppers full every morning, maybe I'm just going to take half a dropper full in the morning. And even then, I chose to stop taking it because my mental health is always going to be a priority over whether or not I can get pregnant. And it's okay if that's not for other people, if people want to manage the anxiety that comes from that. But I think it's important to know those things. So, all of that to say is that I'm going to ask a lot of questions about a person and what their life is like and how they move. And then I'm probably going to suggest really simple, gentle things like chamomile and ginger. Ginger is so good to help with folks who have like discomfort and cramping through their cycle. Things like I make like a cayenne ginger salve that is really nice and really soothing. If someone is trying to create more cervical fluid, I'm going to try to find something that is going to be the least impactful to other parts of their life, that is going to be the most gentle before I suggest more heavy hitting things, right? So something like making more cervical fluid, I might think of something like slippery elm or oat straw or
Marshmallow root comes to
marshmallow
mind.
root. Yes, I was
Okay.
thinking like marshmallow root,
Yes.
like it's so
Like,
shreddy and fluffy and
yeah.
are really demulcent, which means that they bring lubrication. They're going to add lubrication into your body. They're going to help you produce more cervical fluid, but they're really gentle. So I'm going to want to start with something that's really gentle before adding other things before adding some of the more specific herbs into your life.
That's so true. I also feel like we always want like this like remedy, but we want to do it natural, but we have this like medical mindset.
Mhm.
And so we think if we do it every day, it's going to help. And for some of those herbs, it does, right? But for others, it's like, no, we just need it like right now. Like our
Right.
body just needs it right now. And that's another way that you can connect with your body in fertility awareness and kind of bring that into it. Like you said, a ginger or maybe a red raspberry tea during your menstruation is going to be really nutritive. And then after menstruation, maybe some nettle or something, to kind of replenish those stores. But in our society, we're like, we're going to take it every day and see if it helps. And then maybe you have an adverse effect and you're like, well, that didn't work. It's like,
Right.
well, no, it maybe was the route that you were taking or the way you were taking it or the intention that you held with that. So yeah, I love that. And I love you are like the chaste tree go-to.
It does work, but so many people, it's like ashwagandha. That's another one.
Yes.
You Google like how herbs help me sleep better, and everyone's like ashwagandha. But maybe ashwagandha is not for everybody.
Yeah,
So
I feel
I
you.
think having an understanding like all of our bodies are different, and herbs, they can be used this way, but maybe they shouldn't be used the way that you use Tylenol, right? Where
Yeah.
you're like, I'm going to take this for this, right? They can be used that way for sure. I take a chamomile glycerate when my tummy is upset. Right? I take a chamomile glycerate when I have to take a pharmaceutical stimulant because that stimulant might make me jittery. So I want chamomile or oat straw or milky oats to calm me down. But I think herbs, and this goes a little bit into woo woo territory, but I think herbs are about being in relationships sometimes with them and understanding that herbs want to care for us. Red raspberry wants to be nourishing to us. Nettle wants to take care of us. And to understanding that when we have practice of using herbs, even if it's just tea at night before bed, having that rhythm of like, how do I care for myself with herbs in a way that is more intentional than just popping a Tylenol, which I do. I pop a
Well,
Tylenol.
and that's what I was
Yeah.
gonna kind of lead into is you are very much if you have to take a pill, you take it.
Yeah,
right? So I don't know if you want to go
of course.
into, you've been diagnosed with endometriosis
Mhm.
and you have ADHD or ADD, right?
Yeah,
Is it ADD?
ADHD.
ADHD.
Yeah,
And so you're okay with modern medicine, but
mhm.
also you use both, right? And
Yeah,
that's okay. So I guess maybe if you want to dive in just for 5 minutes
absolutely.
about that.
Very often we hear the word holistic. I offer holistic care. And when people use that word, so much of the time they mean that they offer very natural, non-pharmaceutical care for somebody. But it's an inaccurate use of the word holistic, right? I think of like Inigo Montoya, like you do. I do not think that word thinks what it means what you think it means, right? Because the word holistic means to look at a whole person and look at all of the parts of them, all of the pieces of their life, and then tailoring care for that person. I used to work in an herb shop here in Orlando, and I will never forget, I had a woman come in and say, my son was just diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and they want to put him on medications, but I want to put him on an herb. And she was like, what herb do you have in this store that will help him? And I was like, none, actually. If you have a mental health condition that is not a small deal, right? Like it's a
Right.
big deal to have something like bipolar disorder, then plants are not going to help you. They might soothe things about you. I have ADHD, and as much as I want to be able to just take something like rhodiola to stimulate me and have me be able to live my life, it has not been supportive of me. So I go to the place where they make, I call it like my store-bought dopamine. I get my store-bought dopamine and I take it, and then I can do the things that I need to do. But like I said, it makes me feel jittery.
Yeah.
So I take a chamomile glycerate or a milky oats tincture to help soothe my nervous system while I'm doing that. I have endometriosis, and as a doula and an herbalist and an educator, I have a wealth of providers that I can reach out to care for myself and my body. I have been doing our Vigo massage therapy for probably 3 years now. I have a regular perineal steam practice. All of those things are so supportive for me. I make my own teas and I do the things to care for myself throughout my cycle. And none of those things are going to take my organs that are fused together and unfuse them from each other. So I go to the place where they can go inside of my body and unfuse the things from me, right? It is the gift of my life that 1 year ago tomorrow, I had endometriosis excision, and I went from being in pain my entire life to no pain.
That's
I have had
amazing.
no pain in the last
Oh my
year.
gosh, that's so
That's
wonderful.
a miracle.
It
And
is.
as much as my massage therapist is magical and cares for my body so beautifully and cared for my womb and my pelvic space, she could not do what a surgeon with a knife could do. It just couldn't happen. And as much as I did for my fertility and for trying to build a human, making sure that I had nice long luteal phases, all of the things that I could do, for whatever reason, those things didn't work for me. Because sometimes it has been a saying of mine for the last 10 years. Sometimes biology just sucks. And that's not fair, but it is the reality. And so I went to the place where they could give me shots to make my body ovulate and give me the pills that I could take so that I could have a nice long luteal phase with the hopes of getting pregnant. Now, it didn't happen for me. It doesn't happen for everybody, but it happens for a lot of people when they go to a place to get fertility treatment. It also happens to a lot of people that maybe they just don't know when they're fertile, so they need a fertility awareness educator, or maybe they have some luteal phase deficiency, so they're able to change up some of what they're consuming. They're able to add a little bit of supplementation, and then they can get pregnant. But
Yeah.
that's not how it works for everybody, and it's important when you're looking at somebody holistically to look at them as a whole person, and maybe those ways that they care for themselves, the way that they trying to reach their end goal, sometimes that changes depending on where they are in their lives. And it's obviously something I'm passionate about. And I think it's important to have that understanding that not everybody, it doesn't make sense for everybody and every person to just go and meditate and do some yoga and then they're going to get pregnant. I wish that's how it worked. It would be awesome if that's how it worked. And as a provider, it's really important for me to just say you asked me before we started recording, like, if it's okay for you to share. I will share anything related to my fertility and my fertility journey because people don't know. People don't talk about it, and people don't really know that you can combine both of these modalities of care. It doesn't make me a sellout to want to have, a fertility specialist. And it also doesn't make me crazy to want to also use herbs to care for myself, right? Two things can
Absolutely.
happen together. Yeah.
And I think going off of that too is you really do need these other people, right? We need like a full team. So if you're just starting out trying to conceive and you're like, I don't even know where to begin, you go to your doctor, you're like, well, what should I do? And your doctor's like, well, just try for 6 months, right? If you get
Right.
pregnant, high five. And so that's not much help. So then you're like, okay, you're searching, you're looking, and you're like, okay, what else can help me? That's where fertility awareness educators do come in. We are really good and helpful at kind of getting to or somewhat at a root cause for you because we're going to have you start tracking your cycles. We're going to have you start
Yeah.
temping. We're going to have to, are you ovulating? Like if you're not ovulating, whoa, well, that's a big thing to start with, right? And even if you do decide to go down the route of working with a clinic, like a fertility clinic, you're going to have so all of this information that we're teaching you about your cycles, your specific cycles, and you're going to go in, you're going to be like, oh, well, I know that my progesterone is low. I know this. I know that I'm not ovulating or whatever. And so they're going to be able to give you even more specialized care versus just starting with a protocol, right? And so that being said, it's super helpful to have multiple people on your team if you can afford it. And if you can't, I think honestly, we're probably the cheapest people to
As
come to
someone who has
first.
spent 6.5 years trying to build a child, yes, it is way cheaper to take a fertility awareness class.
And to have, I mean, like we can coach you, we can
Yeah.
get you through this. So if you are just trying to get pregnant or you are wanting to become pregnant, I think this is a great step to start first. And we are very resourceful people. So we can help you with other things. Like Tamara said, she has a massage therapist who does Arvigo therapy. Arvigo therapy is amazing. Do you want to kind of just give a quick description about that?
Absolutely. Our Vigo therapy or Maya abdominal therapy is essentially a modality of massage therapy that really focuses on the pelvis and what your uterus is doing, what your womb is doing. And in a lot of cases, they are able to break up adhesions and help you to understand or help you get to a place of like balance in your pelvis. If you are having painful periods or pain with intercourse, having like somebody who really understands the anatomy and who can like with their hands manipulate what's happening in your pelvis is really special.
And it's also really good for prepping if you have a tilted uterus
Mhm.
and, sperm can't get up there. It's great at prepping your body for that. So, and of course, there's so many other things that you can try and
For
do, and I'm
sure.
sure you've done a lot of them.
Have. And I think the reality is that my body just didn't get pregnant. But a lot of people, when they get the opportunity to learn about themselves and learn what their bodies are doing, learn what their hormones are doing, they can make the choices to bring balance to their fertility and they can conceive. I've seen it. I know you've seen it.
Yeah.
It is a gift to be able to do what I do and teach what I teach, even as somebody who did not get pregnant. And it's not something that I feel someone asked me like, but how do you do this work moving through infertility? Yeah, there have been times where I've been like, damn, this really sucks. I'm doing all the things and it's not happening for me. But as someone who's been moving through it for a really long time, I have come to a place where I'm just grateful that I get to be able to share all of this wisdom and I get to watch people build their families when they want to. And that there's no gift better than that.
That's so amazing. And you have such good strength and foresight. And just the fact that you love being around that and you surround yourself in that love is just so beautiful. Okay, well, we have about 5 minutes left. Is there anything that you would want to say to someone who is either trying to conceive or struggling with conception or maybe giving birth or, like anything in your realm? Is there anything that you would want them to know?
Yeah, I would want you to know that your body is good. That your body is good. And so often when we talk about reproductive health or when we're moving through something like fertility or infertility, right? Our body feels like the enemy. It feels like it's betraying us. I should be able to get pregnant. I should be able to stay pregnant, right? Like, but your body is really good and she's trying to speak to you. Every single time I was in pain, my body was trying to tell me something. And learning learning the language of your body really creates a relationship with your body that says to it, okay, I know you're not my enemy. I know you're trying to make this happen too. How can we work together? Living in a body, right? That's somebody who has moved through infertility and moved through pain, all of these things. It is really hard to remember that. It's hard to say, like, oh, there's people who are like, I love my period. My period's so beautiful. If it not been for this last year, I could not have imagined having a relationship with my body that wasn't complicated. But my body is good and she's trying to talk to me. She was trying to tell me, hey, there's something real messed up inside of you. Your anatomy is not well. And very often, when we're not getting pregnant or there is some kind of imbalance, it is our body's way of saying, hey, listen to this, listen to me, take care of me so that I can take care of you. That is the gift of this practice. Even as somebody who did not conceive, it is a gift of this practice that I have relationship with my body and that I know what she's trying to tell me. I know, and it's not just about getting pregnant, right? I know if I have gone too long without having water, my body, she's talking to me, right? I know when I'm not getting enough sleep because my body is telling me. I know if there's something, if I might be getting a cold, not because I start sniffling, but because my body has already started to give me the signs that something's coming because I know how to read the data that she's giving me. And so that's what I would say. Your body is good.
Yeah.
She's working really hard all the time.
And that data shows up
Mhm.
when we write it down and when
Yeah.
we pay attention, which
Mhm.
is also really good.
For sure.
I'm a very visual person. So I think seeing the data that I'm collecting and all the observations that I'm making of my own body, I'm looking back, I'm like, yeah, that totally makes sense. So yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much. I love
Thank
that.
you.
Okay, well, I think we're gonna end there. Thank you everyone so much for listening. If they want to connect with you, Tamara, how would they get a hold of you?
My website is thekindredfeminine.com. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok at The Kindred Feminine. If you are on my website, my phone number is there. You can send me an email from there. I like to joke with people. I mean, it's not a joke, but it's funny. Like, that's my real life phone number. You know what I mean? You can call or text me, and I would love to chat.
And
Yeah.
you're in the Orlando, Florida area.
Mhm. Mhm.
If you're looking for a doula, what's the doula practice? Because you're part of a full practice, aren't you?
So I own my own doula business. I'm an independent doula, but I work out of Moonrise Birth Collective, which is a collective of birth workers and allied health professionals. We have a chiropractor, we have two massage therapists, we have an IBCLC, so a lactation consultant, a pelvic floor physical therapist, and we have a midwife who attends births at home. And it's a beautiful practice. I got really lucky in my life that my husband's sister is a licensed midwife, so we were able to open this together. So come see me. I'm here. I'm here every day. I'm
Yes.
here all the time. So
Amazing.
definitely come, and I would love to connect with you about your pregnancy or about learning this practice if you're interested.
Yeah, it's the full journey. And once again, talking about all of that support
Mhm.
because you really, even going through like a pregnancy and delivery and postpartum, you need a community. And I think what you've created down there is so beautiful.
Thank
And people are really lucky in that community to have you guys in that area. So,
thank you so much. It's the
yeah.
best.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening, and we will talk with you soon.